So first question, do you think any business or clinic should sell fetal tissue for a profit?
No.
Ms.
I do not.
Keep your mics on, please.
I do not.
Okay.
It's against the law.
Thank you all. Number two, do you think that fetal organs should be grown and harvested for transplant?
No.
If they can be grown ethically, but not from the fetus itself.
Okay.
I apologize, but I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean by grown. Are you talking about getting pregnant deliberately in order to donate tissue? No, I would not think that that is appropriate. And in fact, the Reagan panel specifically worried about so-called directed donation and recommended that that be forbidden, and it is under the law. If you're talking about the creation of synthetic organs, which is currently under investigation, and is something I believe my colleague Dr. Goldstein might even be talking about in the next panel, then I think that is something that needs a closer look. And without further information, I couldn't say, but it's probably a very good alternative.
Okay. Thank you. Question number three. Do you think fetal tissue should be used for cosmetics, cell lines to do taste tests for food, or for experiments that combine human and animal DNA?
No matter how they're obtained, I would find these distasteful. No.
I agree with Dr. Donovan.
Okay.
I think fetal tissue should be used in the same ways we use tissue from adults who have died, and that includes a wide range of uses. Some of the ones you mentioned are certainly not the ones that are the most compelling, but they are within the law at this time.
Okay. Number four, if an alternative source of tissue to form cell lines exists, such as spontaneous miscarriages, do you think that is a more ethical approach?
It does exist, and it is more ethical.
Yes, and panels have found that to be the case.
It can be used, but it was found to be insufficient as a substitute for tissue from fetuses that were electively aborted. That was specifically considered by the Reagan panel and has been the subject of investigation since then due to the kinds of causes that underlie miscarriages and often change the nature of the tissue. But certainly it would be less controversial if one could find tissue that does not raise questions about the abortion debate, and avoiding controversy is preferable when it is possible, but not simply in order to avoid controversy at the expense of public health.
Thank you. And the fifth question, if vaccines exist that do not rely upon fetal tissue or cell lines, should consumers be given a choice?
Actually, for the most part, those vaccines do exist. There are a few still left over from the cell line started in the 60s, to which there is no alternative. Many people have asked that an alternative be developed. That wasn't a yes or a no, was it?
But it's an answer, and that is perfectly fine.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I will take that elaboration.
I think parents and patients should be aware of the source of the vaccines they're using. At least it should be available for their information for them to make their own choice about whether to use one that's derived ethically or unethically.
That information is available on the Internet. I have no problem with the idea of saying that people have the right to have as much information as possible and to make choices for themselves. I would note in passing that with regard to the vaccines that have no current alternatives, the Vatican has said specifically that although they would wish that there be other alternatives available, that parents who wish to protect their children by using vaccines that were derived using fetal tissue should feel free to go ahead and do so and put their children's interests ahead of all other concerns.
Madam Chairman, could I offer a correction to that one? I hesitate to have Ms. Charo corrected on the interpretation of Vatican statements, but in fact, that isn't what the Vatican said. What they actually said was because the danger to pregnant women would be so great that, and their fetuses, that children could be immunized with this, not so much for the protection of the children themselves from getting rubella, but from spreading it to pregnant women and their babies.
Okay. Professor Charo, did you have anything else to add?
No, I'm happy to accept the notion that their concern was not for the child who's getting vaccinated, but for the future children who might be affected when pregnant women get infected from the unvaccinated child.
Okay. Dr. Donovan, anything?
It wasn't a lack of concern for children getting vaccinated. Vaccines, all us pediatricians think vaccines are wonderful things, and everybody ought to get lots of them. But in fact, the reason that such a moral change could occur, such an exception could be offered, was because it was truly life or death for the pregnant woman's baby, and that's who needed the protection, and therefore the exception could be made. They still are quite in favor of other vaccinations.
My time has expired.